So the man in the little yellow van is back, and today's topic is nuclear Armageddon. When the special military operation, when the Ukraine war broke out, I opened an account on a Russian social media site called VKontakte, VK. I wanted to get to know Russians a bit better, see how they click, see how they think. They are remarkable people, they really are. They're the same as anyone else on earth until it comes to one thing. That's their patriotism. And I have never seen anything like it. In my entire life, I've just I wish Scotland had a level of patriotism that they just talk about normal stuff. Then if there's any threats to their country, it's like a non-off switch to them. They just get behind their government. It's an amazing thing to behold. And as radical as it may seem, it could be argued they've got a pretty amazing government, couldn't it? Since 1990, the country's went from being an economic basket case to being one of the top economies on the planet. And by far the most militarily powerful nation the world has ever seen. Did you really say that, Zambo? Yep, I'm going to say it again. The Russian Federation currently has the most advanced, the most capable, the deadliest, most lethal military that has ever existed in human history. So, BAE Systems are building a new place to build their weapons of mass destruction, aren't they? Their business is doing well. I wonder why that is. Seems to be very good money in war. So anyway, last week, I don't know how much people pay attention to it. I don't know how much people noticed. The BBC did say some bits and bobs, some stuff. But as ever, it was 2-minute sections. So basically what happened last week is all the countries currently fighting Russia in Ukraine are getting their asses whooped. But they're fighting about 50 different countries. Something like that, isn't it? The entire power of the collective West and NATO and the Ruskies have just built a big defensive line, let NATO send all their kit in it, and they're chewing it up. So NATO know it's over. The powers that be know it's over. They know they cannot fight Russia militarily. So what did they try? They tried a thing called, there's an area in Russia called Kursk, which has got remarkable historic significance for Russia, the Russian people, former Soviet Union. It was the single biggest battle in history during World War II. I can't remember the exact logistics on it, but some 3 or 4 million men faced off each other in Kursk. And it was the final doing for the Wehrmacht, the Axis forces. After the Red Army slapped the Germans about in Kursk, World War II was kind of over. So somebody in their infinite wisdom, and according to Russian social media, decided to invade Kursk. I think there was about 20,000 guys. They had thousands of pieces of military hardware, tanks, armoured personnel carriers, all the kit and caboodle. So NATO was getting their arse handed to them. They decided to do this publicity stunt into Kursk. The Russians basically closed the border around about these guys, and I feel really sorry for them. I mean, respect to the Ukrainian army. They might not be the most powerful military on the planet, but they're currently the bravest, aren't they? They're jumping into a wood chipper to try to protect their country, which is being owned by the CIA. My heart breaks for the poor guys, and they're fighting like lions. They really are. But anyway, they sent about 20,000 guys into Kursk. The Russians have closed the border, and they're just annihilating everything. Some of the footage I'm seeing on my Telegram account is horrific, mind-bending. Every time you see one of these tanks and armoured personnel carriers destroyed, you're not thinking about the 5 or 12 guys that were inside these things that are now dead. So the Russians are firmly blaming the MI6 and the UK government for attacking them in Kursk. Right? That didn't work out. It didn't have the propaganda value that the West thought it would. It's turned into an absolute debacle. Whereas I say human life to the maniacs in Westminster and Washington, it means nothing. It's got no value to them whatsoever. So once they get their ass handed to them, their next big great idea was, let's send long-range weapons into the Ukrainian military so they can directly attack Russia. Right? So if you remember from last week, David Lammy, an English politician. Now, I thought I couldn't hate anybody more than I hated David Cameron. Then Keir Starmer appears. And you're thinking, well, this is a new echelon of incompetent clowns, right? Then I seen this guy, David Lammy, getting interviewed. I actually hate David Lammy more than I hate Keir Starmer. And that's saying something. So David Lammy goes with Anthony Blinken. I suspect Anthony Blinken is currently running America. I think he's the American president just now. Certainly not Joe Biden. They went over to Ukraine and they're all huddling about, getting up to skullduggery. Then when he came back from Ukraine with Anthony Blinken, he flew to America with Keir Starmer to go and talk to Joe Biden, who's another guy that I don't know how much passion I can hate with him with. The guy's incontinent. He's obviously senile. I should feel sorry for him because he's an old senile crow, but the fact of the matter is the guy is evil. He's evil to his core. I've seen stuff that he did when he was younger and stuff that he said when he was younger. He's always been an evil bastard. So they fly over to America. They want to get permission from Joe Biden. Now think about that one as well. Why does the British military have to ask Joe Biden for permission to do anything? So that shows you that the UK government is 100% controlled from the United States of America. That should be an alarm bell ring. So they got together, and I think the Americans says to the British, oh, if you want to do it, batter in, guys. Then the Americans released a statement saying they weren't going to do it. Now here's where the story gets interesting. Because of stuff I'm reading on Russian social media, they had a nasty little plan for the UK. So while all this is happening, Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin went to the Church of the Holy Trinity in Moscow, spoke to Patriarch Kirill. I think he's the head of the Russian Orthodox Church in Russia, or the head of the Russian Orthodox Church in Moscow. That's the equivalent of a head of state going to speak to the Pope. Before the special military operation kicked off, he spoke to Kirill as well, right? After he speaks to Kirill, he gets interviewed outside a building in Moscow. If I can find it, I'll put the link in the description below. And VVP's argument was the only way these weapon systems could work is if NATO technicians, NATO staff, NATO satellites were guiding them to the targets. Very coolly and very calmly, Putin said, if the weapons get used inside Russia, I'm going to consider this an act of war. Now, they called the Ukraine war a special military operation. His goals were to denazify and demilitarise Ukraine. They've certainly demilitarised it. I don't know about the Nazi thing. There's not many of the guys left. War to Russia means something different. It doesn't mean that they're going to jump about city to city in Ukraine, blowing stuff up with tanks, bombing buildings from the air. War to Russia means war. It means they will take the gloves off and go for it. So Putin, oh, as I say, if I can find the link, I'll stick it downstairs. Putin says it would be an act of war between European countries, NATO, and America. Then it gets onto social media. The Russian social media, according to a lot of the commentators on Russian social media, they had a nasty surprise for the UK. Russians don't hate Britain, they don't hate English people, Scottish people, or whatever. They hate the British government. They think the British government are up to their eyeballs in all this Ukraine nonsense, and the British government are up to their eyeballs in all this Ukraine nonsense. So, according to Russian social media, the moment the first long-range weapon systems were fired into Ukraine, they were going to make an example of the United Kingdom. They were going to attack us so heavily, and I'll put some inverted commas in here, that no one would ever consider messing with the Russian Federation again. Now, we obviously don't know what they were planning to do, but there were a few ideas I've seen on the V-Contactor. One of them was we're going to demilitarise the UK, right, in one go. That means every airport, every weapon storage facility, every military base in the UK was going to get whacked. The other one I read was they were going to take out the facilities that made the Storm Shadow weapons. In the UK, I believe there's 3 places in England that make them. And the guy that reckoned they were going to take out the manufacturing bases for these weapon systems also said they were going to fire a nuke off the west coast of Scotland. I'm going to say that to you again. They said they were going to fire a nuclear weapon off the west coast of Scotland to show that they were serious about what they were going to do. So it didn't happen. Thankfully, Keir Starmer shit himself, right? And they did not allow these strikes to happen. NATO apparently are getting together at the end of September to discuss this stuff again at the United Nations. We need to be really, really careful. I can't see why you would explode a nuclear weapon off the coast of Scotland. Why would you not explode it on top of Coolport? That's what I would do. If you were the Russian Federation and you wanted to make an example to other European countries, other NATO bloc countries, that this was getting really serious, if I was the Russians, I would have taken out the British nuclear deterrent. It's the first thing I would have done. Apparently, we only have 2 working submarines, and allegedly, because of some arms agreement, they're only allowed to carry 2 or 4 missiles per submarine. However, again, according to Russian social media, they know where the submarines are, they were tracked, and they were getting whacked. So, I don't know what to say to Scotland. I'm on Twitter as well. Anytime I refer to my own country, I call it Mouseland. Look what the Westminster government have done to us in the past couple of months, taking payments off our old age pensioners. They are shutting down Grangemouth oil refinery, which currently makes £100 million profit per year. They're deindustrialising this, and they're doing it on purpose. They're trying to make our economy not viable. If you think about it, there's 5 million people in Scotland. If we had a Scottish government-run bank, we could issue £200 shares to each member of our country, and we could crowdfund Grangemouth and buy it. There'd be an extra £100 million a year coming into our country. And it would give us energy independence and sovereignty. So it didn't happen, did it? But that's kind of what the word in the street was. So if you're Scottish, please have a think about the relationship we have with Westminster. This is absolute insanity. They are taking us to the brink of a nuclear war. I don't know what else to say. I don't know. Not a lot of people watch my political stuff. YouTube's not actually the place for it either. YouTube's a resource network for learning about everything from flying aircrafts to putting up plasterboard. That's what YouTube's about. I'm actually thinking of opening a Rumble account where they're less hard on freedom of speech and stuff like that. And maybe doing a bit more of this stuff. But honestly, I didn't say anything to my family at the weekend, but I was absolutely terrified. I was absolutely terrified. Keir Starmer is such a puppet and such an idiot that I think what the Americans were doing was saying to Britain, you become the sacrificial lamb. You have a pop, see what happens. But as I said, we're not taking into account the resolve of the people of Russia. They know how to take a punch. It's in their DNA, it's in their history. But do you know what else they know what to do? They know how to punch, and they know how to punch really fucking hard. Alrighty, tighty, tighty. So there's a nice cheery one today. And all the time as our wee grannies are freezing in their wee hoosies, BAE Systems is getting extended, isn't it? It's getting made bigger. That's where your money's going. That's where the money from the oil's going. That's where the money from the renewable electricity is going. It's not going into your granny's pocket. It's going into BAE System. Thank you all for watching. Bye bye.